Season 1, Episode 11 of Queer as Folk, Surprise. This episode was directed by Michael DeCarlo and written by Jason Schaefer and Jonathan Tollins. It first aired in the US on February 25th, 2001, and in Canada, March 19th, 2001. So Michael, Brian, and Emmett are walking down the street. We learn that Michael turns 30 in a couple of days.
Oh, don't listen to him. You look like you're 10.
He does look like he's 10, doesn't he? The song that's playing underneath this scene is Boys Keep Swinging by David Bowie, as the boys are walking down the street before Michael turns 30 when he officially won't be young or a boy or whatever anymore. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this song at the end of the episode because they use it again at the end. So Michael's the second of the group to turn 30. Ted's 33, so he turned 33 years ago. So Michael's the first of the rest of them to turn 30.
Well, I'm 33. What does that make me? Did you guys just hear something? Like a voice from the dead? I'm glad I didn't move in with David. I don't know how much time I have left.
So we're reminded that Michael didn't move in with David.
Oh, perhaps you were lured by the prospect of all that chiropractic sex.
And I laughed out loud at that part. I mean, like, it's perfect in so many ways. Like, if you're dating a doctor, what are you gonna get? Free medical treatment? You can't, that's not work, like, all the equipment you need, it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't make, technically you're not allowed to treat your family, but then, like, if you want to get treated at home, you can't, I don't know, you can't really do that, it doesn't really make sense. But if you're dating a chiropractor, all the free chiropractic that you would get, not to mention
all that chiropractic sex.
So the group enters the diner.
Sex wasn't that great.
Michael's just trying to make himself feel a little bit better.
I seem to remember something about a talented tongue. Yeah, and fantastic fingers. Orgasms that wouldn't quit.
All right, the sex was great. It gets boring, with the same person after a while.
So obviously Michael's kind of lying here. He's just trying to, save face and also make himself feel better. Certainly sounds a lot like Brian here. Anyways, I love that Ted and Emmett here are just like, no, you definitely made a mistake, but I guess do whatever you want.
Well, I wouldn't know.
Isn't that just one of the funniest things I've ever heard? He's been having sex with Justin for like, what? It's gotta be at least like 6 months now, right? Seemed pretty into it last week, but we see that Justin is the busboy. So Justin has started working at the Liberty Diner in order to pay back all the money that he charged to Brian's credit card without asking, I guess, when he stole it. Yeah, like I said, he really went all out with the room service and the room and the plane. I mean, there's a lot of money he was charging. Unnecessarily, like I feel he could have spent a lot less, but whatever. I also love how it's Brian that yells out.
Hey, busboy, do you think we could get some water?
For one, because I feel like this is another instance of Brian changing the subject. Changing the subject from Michael breaking up with David and all that. The whole elephant in the room of Michael basically broke up with David because of Brian. I like it on that level, and I also like it because it's just yet another instance of how he's kind of playing around with Justin. Development.
What is he doing here?
And he says that all mad. Seriously? Honestly, Michael just needs to get over this. And I don't mean this to be petty or anything, but I'm just kind of so sick of Michael being annoyed whenever Justin is there and being mean to him and not liking him. I don't know. It's like, it's been like 6 months for them. We're 11 episodes into this show. Again, yes, I understand. Okay, I get it. Well, I mean, Michael's obviously in a bad mood here, but he's mean to Justin all the time, so. But also, I get it. Well, he just doesn't really like Justin, for one. He's also jealous and all that stuff. Best friend, who used to just be his best friend all the time, is now someone else is taking up his time, so I get it. And, he just broke up with someone so that he could basically spend more time with Brian. Anyways, I get why he's annoyed at Justin, and I get why he doesn't like him, and why he's always mad and mean to him, but I don't like it.
Is he adorable? The customers love him. His ass gets more compliments than the burgers.
So Justin brings over their waters, and he carries them with his fingers inside the glasses, like in their water. I love how Emmett just like slaps his hand away and gives him a look. He's kind of like, oh, come on, really? I live for interactions between Emmett and Justin.
You live in my room at my mother's house, you work where I eat. I can't get rid of you, can I?
No, you cannot, so just deal with it, Michael. Not to be petty or anything.
He's just paying off the charges he made on my credit card.
Couldn't you send him to prison?
So Michael clearly hasn't told his mom that him and David broke up.
It ran its course, Dad. Leave it alone.
Ooh. Okay, so Brian just keeps kind of brushing this whole thing aside of Michael and David. So is it because he feels some sort of guilt over it? Over them breaking up? I mean, he has to know that that whole thing he did on the roadside had to have had some kind of effect on this. right? Or is it just that he's glad that David's gone and to have his best friend back? He's just kind of like, let's just forget about him. Maybe it's many things. I think he does feel guilty, especially what we see later on in the episode. I think that Brian definitely feels guilty about Michael and David breaking up because he did have a hand in it for sure.
How about those blueberry banana pancakes you love, honey?
Ooh, yes, yum.
I love his smiling and clapping. And then we cut to Emmett holding his stomach in the drugstore.
Why did I eat those goddamn pancakes?
Because they sounded delicious. I want some. Ted goes to refill his Claritin.
Hey, did you see that guy?
Honey, my gator went up the minute he walked in.
So we learn that Ted had sex with this guy, and we flash back to 6 months ago. Ted's getting some water, and of course they frame the shot with some Jones sodas. But honestly, I can just like imagine them carrying like a crate of those things every time they went to shoot anything anywhere. And being like, hey, can we get some Jones soda in there? Add a little pop of color. Hey, what if they were drinking some Jones soda in this scene? Is that a Coke I see over there? You know they drink exclusively Jones soda. Get that out of here. I don't want to see it. But that it was just, you know, they're probably getting money from them, so just putting it in every scene that they could. But I was just like at a bakery recently and I saw that they had some Jones sodas for sale and I'm like, oh. So it worked, clearly. I don't know if it worked in 2001, but it's definitely working for me now. So in this scene, in the script, where Ted is getting the water, when Ted says,
Don't want to face the morning without water.
direction for that line says, nervously, in love. And they went at it really hard in a Land Rover. Is very energized.
That's the story.
I need to go into a phone booth and jerk off.
So they overhear that this guy is picking up his HIV medication. And Ted is kind of freaked because apparently they didn't use a condom. So this is like, you know, one of the only times in Ted's life where he's actually like taken a risk and been kind of careless. And it might have, you know, really bad consequences. Anytime we see Ted take some kind of chance like this with this guy and then with Blake in the 3rd episode, it always seems to end badly for him. Now, this turned out well, but it could have not. Poor Ted. So Michael's at work. Marley tells him that there's a fire in the back. Also, why does he run towards the fire? Marley's like, there's a fire in the back, and he's like, oh, better go run to the back so that I can see the fire? No, I just be like, okay, oh my god, let's evacuate the store, people. He just runs right towards that fire. I just feel like she could have used something else to get him back there, aside from fire, because I hear the words fire and I'm just gonna run in the opposite direction. But apparently it is a surprise birthday party for Michael, and this is the first time that the title of the episode is used. I mean, a surprise to no one, because obviously that's something that's gonna get yelled at a lot when it's someone's birthday. In the script it says that Tracy is surrounded by fellow Q-Martians. Q-Mart, but Q-Martians. Yeah. So apparently Tracy's the one who found out that it was his birthday.
How did you?
Tracy found out. She knows everything about you.
Really?
Not everything.
So basically they're just reminding us again that Tracy doesn't know that Michael is gay and that he's been keeping it a secret from her. Even though they're dating, apparently. She thinks they're dating, so. Anyway, I don't understand, like, he clearly thinks they're dating. Like, how is he keeping that up at the store? I guess he's like, when they're at the store, he's like, oh no, we gotta stay professional so we can't, like, be all whatever. But then, like, they never hang out outside of the store. I don't know. Situation's a little confusing, but oh well, who cares? So I feel like we haven't seen Tracy in a while. I mean, it's probably only been like 1 episode, but I feel like it's been a while. Wait, when was the last? I think the last time we saw her was 108. This is 111, so it's been a little bit. Tracy, I missed you.
Happy birthday, Mike.
So next we're on to Brian and Michael in the steam room, and Michael makes sure that Brian isn't planning a surprise for him.
Why would I want to celebrate a tragic event like that?
I also kind of can't believe that Brian is going so hard at this whole when you turn 30 you might as well be dead thing. You know, it'll just be so awful and you'll have nothing left to live for. I mean, I get that he's joking a little bit. I just can't believe he's just really going with it because he's going to be turning 30 in a few months too. So it's like, how does he think that that's going to go? When every time someone turns 30, he just keeps going like, oh my god, you might as well be dead. That's the worst. And I get that he feels that way, but I can't believe he's just saying that out loud so much when in a few short months, he's gonna be 32. Like, how does he think that's gonna go? Like, what does he think his friends are gonna do when he's spent all this time going on about it? I just feel like he's really not thinking that far ahead. Just kind of living in ignorance, like, nope, not happening. Not happening to me. Does it think there's gonna be any negative consequences?
Because I want that day to pass without a single reminder that I'll never be young and cute again.
Maybe you should have kept a good doctor around. You'll always be younger than him and cuter.
That's true. That's very true. But also like how Justin will always be younger than Brian, which I'm sure he just hates. So this is kind of the first thing that we've seen Brian say about the whole David thing. Before he just kind of either ignored it or, you know, then moved on, changed the subject. But here he's actually the one bringing it up. Maybe he just didn't want to say how he felt about it in front of the others, just because he only brings it up when they're alone.
I thought you couldn't stand him.
When did I ever say that?
Every chance you got?
Maybe he wasn't such a bad guy after all.
Well, now's a hell of a time to tell me.
Why, you didn't break up with him on account of me, did you?
Of course not.
Okay, and so I think that that's why he brought it up. He didn't want to do it in front of their friends, but like I said, I think he does feel at least a little bit of guilt over it, probably more than a little bit. And here he kind of just wants to find out if Michael broke up with David because of him. And he's also kind of letting him know here that he's not gonna, I don't know how to say this, get with him, no matter what he did by the roadside.
That's good. Because we can't spend the rest of our fucking lives hanging out together.
What does this mean? So is this his way of telling him that they'll never be more than friends? Does he feel bad because he might have led Michael to believe otherwise in the last episode? He just kind of wants to make it clear. So anyways, Brian leaves and two guys follow him. So this is obviously he's gonna go get laid, but also this is him solidifying his point. I think maybe at least he's kind of just telling Michael, you know, don't think that we're gonna be something because I'm always gonna keep doing this. I'm gonna keep doing what I do. So in the script, when Michael and Brian are in the steam room, Michael mentions to Brian how Tracy gave him a kiss and gave him some cupcakes, which the two of them then have a back and forth about. And then Michael ends with, and how do I repay her? By lying through my teeth. And then Michael asks if Brian's planning a surprise party, which then continues on with the scene from there. Probably something cut out for time, but it just connects the dots a little bit more, like of how Brian thought of his plan. And then after Brian says,
Because we can't spend the rest of our fucking lives hanging out together.
in the script, the description says, Brian leans his head back, closes his eyes. Michael glances at Brian for a beat, suddenly feeling very alone. Then he leans his back, closes his eyes too. Just interesting how then Michael then feels very alone when he realizes that Brian might not want to hang out with him for the rest of his life. I mean, I think that Brian does want to hang out with him for the rest of his life, but you know what I mean. So Emmett and Ted are at the doctor's or the clinic. Ted is going to get tested for HIV because he had unprotected sex 6 months ago with someone who he just found out is HIV positive. And then Emmett is getting tested for moral support. We see Emmett dancing with a skeleton, famous story. On the day they were shooting this, Peter Page just picked up the skeleton and did that without really realizing afterwards what it meant, because it kind of showed him dancing with death, which is something that he would be doing for the rest of the episode. Is, you know, we see that he thinks that he has HIV.
I always have condoms, spermicidal lubricant,
A bottle of hydrogen peroxide and witch hazel. Great, so you're the safe sex poster boy and I'm the happy hooker.
I'm just saying you have to be careful.
All right already.
If anything ever happened to you, you're too important to me.
I mean, not to be that person, but Ted was in a coma. Everyone thought that he was going to die for sure. And Emmett and everyone else didn't really seem overly upset about it. But hey, I guess they've grown closer since then. And then the Grusalog walks in. So the actor that plays the nurse here, I think he's a nurse at least, is Mark Lutz, who also played the Grusalog on the TV show Angel, Gru for short. Whenever I see him in anything, I just think, hey, it's the Grusalog. So that's what I'll be referring to him as. And it always kind of freaks me out for a second seeing him because he always wore those contacts on Angel to make his eyes look kind of weird or whatever. So then I see him with like normal human eyes and it's like, whoa, who's that? Anyways, so he walks in and the Grusalog is the person taking their blood. Emmett's obviously into the Grusalog. Okay, the nurse guy, sorry.
I'm just getting tested for moral support.
And Emmett mentions here that he's going to pay by check, which is something that we all know comes up later on in the episode. So then we see Justin come home to Debbie's house. This is like the first time we see him really living there. So cute. Because at the end of the last episode, we saw that he was going to move in with Debbie. So she gives him 2 Kleenex boxes to take up to his room. So Michael is there and he says,
My room.
Come on, sweetie. Back off, huh? You're about to be 30 years old.
yes, thank you. Like, you may act and seem like a 12-year-old Michael, but you are not one. You're almost 30. And then I love when Justin walks by and mouths,
Don't remind me.
you go, Justin. So Michael gives Vic his meds, and they're just kind of reminding us again that Vic is HIV positive and how his life is different because of that.
Just lost a potential son-in-law.
All you lost was free treatment for osteoporosis.
Which is even more valuable.
Michael Charles Novotny.
Uh-oh, middle name.
I love Debbie's bracelets. So Debbie tells Michael to apologize to David.
Mom, David and I had nothing in common except Pantene shampoo and conditioner in one, and I had to give up my entire life. I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't go to clubs.
I mean, did he though? Would he have had to have given that up? I guess because David said he wanted a partner to share his life with, he then took that to mean, I don't know, whatever.
Good. Get out before they kick you out. Before you turn invisible.
See, listen to your uncle. Huh? You want to be like him? You know what I mean.
I don't know. It's not bad advice. I mean, you should be able to do whatever you want, but I imagine it's just not too great for the ego when you're much older than everybody else there.
In a few days, you're not going to be a kid anymore, hanging out with Brian.
Why is it always Brian?
You tell me.
Ooh, yes, Michael is always Brian for you. I mean, obviously, I get it like I've said many times, but...
I mean, David really cared for you. You could see it in his eyes. Vic, couldn't you?
I don't know. I was too busy looking at his chest.
There'll be someone else.
There'll always be someone else. But there won't be someone like David every day.
So then Michael calls David. David answers. Michael doesn't say anything. And then David just looks at the screen and says,
Michael, I have caller ID.
I love that moment so much.
I must have pushed the wrong button.
So then Michael just hangs up. Debbie storms into Brian's place.
You've ruined my kid's life. I remember the first time I heard your name. Michael says, there's this new boy in school, Brian Kinney. For weeks, that's all he could talk about. Brian Kinney this and Brian Kinney that. Next thing, you're cutting classes. And then I come home from work one day and I find the two of you 14 and drunk. It was then I knew you were trouble. And you haven't disappointed me a day since then.
I guess she's just super mad here because, I mean, that can't be true. It's just last week she said she was so proud of Brian and for taking Justin to live with her. But, you know, there must have been more instances of that than that moment too, right? Anyways.
Well, at least you can't accuse me of being inconsistent.
Consistent heartbreak.
Come on, Deb. You know I've looked after Mikey.
I never said that you weren't there for him. You've been there too much. Always giving him just those extra little tidbits of your affection, huh?
And then Brian looks a little bit guilty here.
To make him believe that maybe someday you'd be his.
Well, who knows? Maybe we'll end up a couple of old queens in Palm Springs.
Only what's he supposed to do until then? He had a chance with David. But you had to fuck it up.
He wasn't having any fun.
He's had enough fun. You've all had enough fun. It's time for him to be a man.
And what do you want me to do about that?
Well, I don't know. Something. You owe my kid something.
Okay. You win. I'll do something. It's Mikey's 30th birthday. He should have a party he never forgets.
And then Debbie kind of looks at Brian in that moment like, what? I love it because, like, what does that mean? You know, you have to do something. And then he's like, I'm going to throw him a birthday party. And she's kind of like, that's literally the opposite of what I asked you to do. I asked you to stay away from him. Okay, so this scene. This is the first time that we see Debbie at Brian's loft. I think that Debbie's just really, really mad in this scene. Michael's her son, and she can see him throwing away his future and the first real relationship that he's ever been in. Just something that she knows that he actually wants. And then he just kind of tosses it away like it's nothing. He's not even realizing what it was. And she sees Brian as the one to blame. I mean, he is. Well, I mean, I'd say Michael is mostly the one to blame here. Michael's an adult who makes his own choices. But yeah, if Brian weren't there and if Brian weren't a possibility, then he probably wouldn't have done that. I mean, I think he definitely wouldn't have done that. So I get it. You know, I get why she's mad. She says some things that were untrue. Yes, Brian probably was or definitely was trouble to Michael when they were in their teens. Brian came from a bad home and probably wasn't the best influence on Michael. I also think that he did help a lot too. You know, he gave Michael a friend when he didn't have many or any. I also think that Michael and Debbie also really helped Brian. Who knows, you know, how Brian would have turned out if it weren't for Michael and Debbie. If he didn't have that influence, if he didn't have that example of unconditional love, real good love around him and people who cared about him. Although, I mean, I know we see how he turned out even having that, but he didn't have that until he was like 14 years old. When you've grown up in that household up to the age of 14, that's going to do a lot of damage as we see. But anyways, I'm not going to get into that right now. So I think Debbie's just all worked up. And that line that she said about, you know, you haven't disappointed me a day since then, that line always kind of bugs me. But I get it. And anyways, I'll move on. She's definitely right about the other part, about Brian always giving Michael those little extra bits of affection to make him kind of believe that one day they'll be together. And he always just keeps him hanging on, while also knowing that he's never going to let that happen, at least not for a few decades. I actually do think that that is Brian's semi-plan for the distant future, to end up together when they're really old and he can't have anyone else. Michael is his best friend and he loves him, so it's not like that would be a big burden or anything to Brian, but basically he just thinks that Michael will be the only one who's going to want him at that point in time. So Debbie is saying that Michael needs to grow up. They all need to grow up. It's probably best for Michael in the long run because he'll never really be truly, truly happy. I'm not sure what Brian's plan is for the party in that moment. Is it just kind of, Michael said he didn't want me to throw him a party, so that's what I'm going to do. Maybe that'll make him mad. Or is he like, okay, I'll throw him a party and it'll be like one last hurrah, kind of like a goodbye thing too. I don't know, I'm just curious as to when he planned exactly what he was going to do. So then when Brian is talking to Debbie, we hear Brian say,
Come on, Deb. You know I've looked after Mikey.
but then in the script, at the end of that it says, times when you couldn't. So it's just interesting that the last part didn't make it in. The line makes sense because she was a single mom who was working all the time, so she couldn't be there constantly, and so it makes sense that Brian was there for him when she couldn't be. Kind of shows more of their relationship, I think. Okay, I guess I'll just mention this now. Here's my kind of theory on the whole Brian and Michael relationship. From Brian's point of view. I think that one of the reasons that Brian keeps leading on Michael and keeps him hanging on is because a part of him maybe thinks that he won't have him anymore as a friend, as family, once Michael realizes that it's never gonna happen. Like, if there's no chance of it ever actually happening, because Brian kind of thinks that that's all that he's good for. That's kind of my main thought about this, is that basically that Brian doesn't want to lose Michael. He thinks that once Michael sees that there's no chance for the two of them, he's not going to be his friend or his family anymore, because then what else does Brian have to offer? So he just keeps him hanging on and keeps doing these little things like we saw in the last episode and we've seen in many episodes. Gonna keep doing that just so that there's always a little tiny possibility so that Michael will never leave him. So I think that's a lot of it. It's not kind to Michael what he does a lot of the time. And you think, was there ever a point in time where Brian did like Michael, did want to be with him, but then just didn't do that because he didn't want to lose him, like I said, and then just kind of let that go over time? I don't know. What it just comes down to is that he hasn't wanted to, and he doesn't want to lose Michael as his friend. And more than his friend, I think, as his family. But then also we have, you know, Brian's example for that kind of love, that kind of romantic love or a partner when he was growing up with his parents, and that relationship was awful. Minor spoiler alert here if you haven't finished season 1, although I think you can surmise a lot of this from what we've seen already. His dad said that he loved his mom, but abused her constantly. Love between Brian's parents wasn't good. Brian says in the second episode of the show,
love is something that straight people tell themselves they're in so they can get laid. And then they end up hurting each other because it was all based on lies to begin with.
So Brian doesn't think that real love exists, like romantic love. So he just doesn't want to go down that road with Michael because that road is what leads to hurt and pain, as he witnessed as a child. I think I mentioned this before, but Brian desperately doesn't want to be like his father. So he tries to not put himself in those situations, like relationships, because he thinks that he's doomed to be like him. So then he just doesn't put himself in those kinds of situations. So then he won't act like his father or turn out like him. And also maybe he's just not into Michael that way. So the first reason is why I think he keeps Michael hanging on, and the second is why I think he doesn't want to be with him, and all that is kind of mixed with not interested as well. Ted and Melanie are looking for a birthday gift for Michael in his sex shop.
I wonder what Brian will get him.
If he's lucky, a farewell fuck, once and for all.
Nice.
Well, it is something he wants and wouldn't get for himself.
I love how everyone else knows about this, you know, knows about Michael's feelings. Also, this kind of reminds me of 212, which we obviously haven't gotten to yet. I love seeing Melanie and Ted hang out. The last episode, we saw them have brunch and talking about accounting stuff. And now we see them doing this. I don't know, I just really love the two of them as friends. I feel like they mesh really, really well together.
It's not just the sex. I feel like she's shutting me out. I don't know how much longer I can take it.
And I wonder why. Does Lindsay feel like Melanie is hiding something from her about that whole money thing? Is she mad that Melanie doesn't want Brian involved at all? Or is this just Melanie projecting? Or is Melanie just perceiving it's wrong? I have no idea. Anyways, I'm curious. We're going to find out more about that later.
Look, I don't want to hear this.
Why can't I share?
Because the minute you start telling your friends your relationship problems, it's the beginning of the end.
I feel like he's right.
Find a shrink.
Oh, I've been in therapy for 6 years.
I find a little hilarious because that's also the exact same amount of time that she's been in a relationship with Lindsay.
Are you covered by insurance?
Yep.
Great. Then have a breakdown. You can afford it.
Great advice, Ted.
Jesus, what is with you? You are so negative.
From your lips to God's ears.
Then Ted's phone rings and it's the Gruselog calling to tell him that everything is fine.
I'm negative. I'm negative.
Well, that's okay. Happy people can be really annoying.
I love that part. And also, she's right. We see Ted tell Emmett that he's negative. Emmett has gotten Michael a vintage Easy Cake oven for his birthday, which I guess is the non-copyrighted version of an Easy Bake oven.
Every gay boy wanted an Easy Cake oven. Didn't you?
I had an Easy Bake oven when I was a kid. I loved it. So Emmett checks his messages to see if he got a message from the doctor's office or the clinic. He has a message telling him to come in as soon as possible.
Everybody knows when they tell you to come in, it means something's wrong.
So the office is closed for the weekend and Emmett has to wait till Monday.
I have to wait till Monday? I have to wait till fucking Monday, the whole fucking weekend? Oh my God, why is this happening to me?
Dr. David is finishing up a jog, comes back to his house. Brian is standing in his driveway under an umbrella. I have to imagine that when they set out to film this, they didn't think it would be raining. Brian is standing there in a suit that looks like it just came out of the 70s. I mean, not quite that dramatic, but I'm getting a real 70s vibe. Brian mentions about the surprise party.
Oh, yeah, well, I thought that was a joke.
Why would it be a joke?
Look, I don't think Michael would feel too comfortable with me being there. Quite frankly, I don't think I'd feel too comfortable being there myself.
Me neither.
Doc, you're always welcome at my place.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Come on. You're not going to give up that easy, are you?
Hey, I didn't give up. That was his decision.
Well, Mikey doesn't always know what's best for him.
No shit.
Sometimes he needs a little push.
A little push, you say?
So you'll come by around 9?
So, seemingly, Brian is trying to get David to go to the party to get Michael and David back together. I mean, I guess he technically is. Anyways, that's what we're led to believe is his plan. Also, I love when David says,
no shit.
Like, yeah, obviously. Like, he just does whatever you tell him to, or whatever he thinks that you want or would like. So Emmett is freaking out, and Ted's trying to console him.
I never did anything.
You know guys who fuck 100 times a week. 5 or 6 times isn't anything.
Emmett is wearing pink and orange again, just like in the pilot. Although I think, like I said at the time, those colors were very in.
You cannot be infected. No one in the world is more HIV phobic than you are. You practically boiled the sheets.
Well, that still doesn't explain why they want to see me. Now, does it? God, how the fuck am I going to get through this weekend? I am so scared.
Maybe you should skip Michael's party.
No. No, I don't want to spoil his day. That's...
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'll take my mind off things. We just can't tell him.
Story is, we're picking up Brian to go for dinner and to
Right.
Babylon.
One last dance of death.
Like when he was dancing with the skeleton. I really love this moment between the two of them. We can see how scared Emmett is and how much Ted cares about him. And they're really just showing here, this can happen to anyone. You always need to be super, super careful. Michael doesn't want to go out. He says his life is over.
This is a very special occasion, you know? A once-in-a-lifetime thing, a night of nights.
Yeah, well, I plan on sleeping through every miserable minute of it. You guys can tell me all about it tomorrow.
We need to celebrate.
Celebrate what? That I'm turning into a geezer? That my life is over?
Think of all you have to look forward to.
Flatulence, incontinence, chronic constipation, a closet full of Depends.
So Michael obviously doesn't know this. He's not aware of what's happening with Emmett. But what he's saying is pretty insensitive because Emmett is grappling with the fact that he might be positive. His life will be changed forever, or could be changed forever. So then Michael being like, my life is over, I might as well be dead because he's turning 30. Just a little insensitive. But I guess good on Emmett for keeping up a happy front. And I guess I'll just say now that being HIV positive in 2001 was a lot different than it is today. Not that it's still not serious, but it's handled much better today. The medication and everything, you know, things like PrEP and all that. Like getting that news in 2001 was a lot different. And then it's Ted who loses it at Michael's unintentional insensitivity.
Oh, for Christ's sake, would you shut up already and come to your goddamn surprise party?
I love how Emmett's facial expression doesn't change at all, and he doesn't even look at Ted for a second, and then he just turns around and looks at Ted and doesn't say anything.
Surprise.
And this is the second time in the episode that we hear the episode title. So there's a deleted scene from this episode. Michael and Emmett and Ted are outside of Brian's loft before they go in for the party. And Michael is practicing his, oh my god, to act surprised. And Michael has this line where he says, everybody knows you two can't keep a secret. And then Ted looks at Emmett and obviously they're keeping a secret right now. I like this scene here. They probably just cut it for time. But then Michael and Ted and Emmett show up at Brian's. And Michael's acting is not good.
Hi, we're here. We're ready to go to Babylon.
Assholes. You told him.
And that's the third time we hear the episode title.
Who are all these people?
Well, if I invited just your friends, there'd be like 6 people here.
He's right.
I had to open it up to sex partners.
I hadn't slept with any of these people.
My sex partners.
So Brian says happy birthday and then kisses him. A goodbye kiss, perhaps? Mel and Lynn's have brought Gus to the party, which seems like a choice to bring a baby to a party like that. I guess they couldn't get a sitter. Then Dr. David shows up and hands his gift to Justin. I love how Justin is just kind of like, okay, why did he hand it to him? David wishes Michael a happy birthday and then kisses him, and Brian looks away.
Come on, Mike, you've got presents. Excuse us.
We see that Justin is mixing drinks.
How do you know how to mix drinks?
I'm from the Gentile Country Club set.
He makes Melanie a margarita. We also see that Emmett is drinking a lot because of the news that he thinks he's gonna get. So then Michael opens Emmett's present.
I always wanted one of those.
And I love how Emmett just looks at Ted like, I told you so. I really love how excited Ted is for Michael to open his present.
Oh, that's mine.
So Ted thinks that his gift is just hilarious, and everyone's just kind of like,
It's funny.
it is. Funny. Try to make him feel better. I love that whole thing. So then he opens David's present, and I love Emmett and Ted in the background here. Like, I love how they look at each other like, ooh. But I also love how it's partly Emmett looking at him like, oh, Ted. So it's an expensive watch, a Rolex, I guess. Only he had it engraved before they broke up.
Don't pay attention to the words. Just...
We don't find out what it says, but I wonder what it is. And then Brian leaves. Again, I love Ted's face. And then Brian says,
Hey, Mikey. Someone here to see you.
so it's Captain Astro, or someone dressed up as Captain Astro. The person that is playing Captain Astro here is the same actor that they used in 105. The guy with all the tattoos who woke up in Brian's bed and did like the baby talk to the baby. Apparently they really liked the actor, so they brought him back for this. And he gives some Astro Comics #1.
This is the first appearance of Captain Astro in print.
Apparently it's worth a lot of money. Wonder exactly how much he paid for it.
Anything for my best friend.
So David is not happy. I mean, he's also probably like, Brian tried so hard to get me to come here, and then he does this so that, you know, seemingly to get back together with Michael. And here he is just like peeing all over his territory yet again, making David look not as good next to him. Totally just thinking, you know, how did I fall for this? Also in the background, you can see that there are huge pictures of Brian and Michael. So there's one of Michael as a kid. Then there's also a bunch of pictures of the two of them, of Brian and Michael. So I guess this really is like one last BFF hurrah, I guess. I guess Brian wants to go out in style with their friendship.
Enjoy, Mikey.
And then Michael dances with Captain Astro. So in the script it says, huge photographs of Michael and his friends decorate the walls. So it's interesting how they made the change to just pictures of Michael and then pictures of Michael and Brian. I think just to really drive home the point, this is Brian saying goodbye, and this is one last BFF hurrah. So Justin and Melanie do some shots. So what is Brian wearing? Like a velour suit jacket? Silk, maybe, I guess? I don't know. So then Debbie tells David that it's a beautiful watch and a beautiful thought. And then we have this scene between Brian and Ted.
Nice going on the gift. Couldn't have been more perfect.
Thanks.
David's present didn't stand a chance. Then again, neither did he.
Fuck off.
Just can't help yourself, can you? You have to make sure Michael regresses permanently to the age of 12. He's 30, for Christ's sake, Brian. Don't you think it's time you let him go?
I'll tell you what. I will, if you will.
What?
Tell him you've been in love with him. For years.
What are you talking about?
Don't act so innocent. You know what I mean.
In this moment, Ted hasn't been and isn't looking at Brian. He's just kind of acting like this isn't fazing him.
The boys saw your pictures. They saw your little shrine to Mikey when you were in your coma. Of course, I always knew.
So Ted just kind of looks shocked and not happy to hear this.
So, as I said, you let him go and so will I. Ladies first.
Okay, so I honestly thought that after Ted's coma in 104, they were just gonna pretend like the whole Ted being in love with Michael thing never happened. I guess it was kind of alluded to in like 107. We kind of saw that moment where Emmett realized that it must be hard for Ted. I mean, but that was all very much subtext. I don't know, I was just kind of shocked when it was brought up again here. I think that it was pretty cruel of Brian to say that, because now Ted has to live with the fact that all of his friends know Brian was really mad, and when Brian is mad, he acts out. And then when Ted says,
You have to make sure Michael regresses permanently to the age of 12.
I mean, that is so true though. Yeah, even with his gift, the gift that Brian gave him, that's something from when Michael was young, something that they shared together when they were teenagers. He's just kind of keeping him that kid who's obsessed with comics, and the two of them at that age, so that Michael will always want him and always follow him around, you know, keeping him at that age. And Brian wants Michael to always be kind of in awe of him too. And also, Brian probably got that gift before he planned this whole birthday thing for Michael. I mean, it probably took him a long time to get that. It was obviously really hard to track down, and he spent a lot of money on it. So he bought it before he came up with this whole plan to let Michael go or to push him away. And it was the perfect gift for Michael. I guess he could have changed his gift to not outshine David, but also he could have not gotten the like person in the Captain Astro costume to come. So again, I feel like this is just kind of like one last huge BFF birthday bash and kind of go out in style. farewell, a way to say goodbye to him, like one last really great time. Because as far as Brian knows, him and Michael aren't going to be friends anymore after this, like ever again. I guess he just wants to make him really, really happy before he destroys his life. Not destroys his life, but throws a wrench into it for sure. But anyways, so the whole thing with Ted being in love with Michael, honestly thought that Ted already had let Michael go. I don't know, he didn't really seem to be in love with him anymore, especially not like he was in the first 3 episodes. Like, I just felt like that got brought up a lot. I really haven't seen that at all from Ted, at least from my point of view. But anyways, I'm pretty sure this is something that's never brought up again, like after this episode, at least that I can remember. And it's also just so crazy to me watching these early episodes and seeing that that was ever a thing, that Ted was ever in love with Michael. I don't know, I always forget that that happened. So Emmett asks Vic how he's doing.
You boys never talk to anyone over 40 unless you have.
I think I have it.
It doesn't mean what it used to, you know.
That's what they say. People still
die. All the time. But they die from other things, too. I can't think about that.
I just can't believe this is happening to me. I mean, I'm not promiscuous.
Well, let me tell you about promiscuous. Promiscuous is anyone having more sex than you.
I thought I was being safe. Careful.
Sex isn't careful. And if it is, you're doing it wrong. It's messy. And it's human. And it's mixed up with other things. It's a genie who won't stay in the bottle. Listen, Emmett. If you think you made a mistake, move on. And accept it like a man.
I mean, Vic is right. That's probably the best approach. If he is positive, there's nothing he can do about it now. At the party before things go south, everyone's kind of having a really good time. And then that's kind of contrasted with Ted and Emmett, especially Emmett, who are usually comedic characters, especially Emmett. Emmett is usually used the one to lighten the situation, and he's very much the comedic one of the group. And then you have him in this episode while everyone else is having fun at the party. He is the one going through a very tragic and troubling situation. It's also really great to see him go through something like that, because up until now we've mostly seen him do comedic stuff. You've got this kind of whole story of, oh, I'm turning 30, I might as well be dead, or I'm dying, or whatever, contrasted against Emmett thinks that he might actually be dying. It just kind of shows how ridiculous they're being about turning 30 when you see it right against someone who might actually, whose life might be in danger at some point. So then Michael pulls David in to dance with him. David's not really into it, although he kind of seems like this throughout the episode. So Lindsay is nursing Gus. So Lindsay, Debbie, and Melanie are kind of talking.
30 years. Seems impossible to believe. He's a man, but he still feels as tiny and precious to me as Gus does to you.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
I can't even imagine. Goes by like a dream. Sorry, honey. You feeling left out?
Me feel left out? Not with what it's costing me a month.
Ooh, okay. So Melanie is drunk and is obviously still really unhappy about the whole money thing and, Lindsay wanting to stay home with Gus. I'm sure that Lindsay has felt that, and Melanie is also probably being a little distant herself because of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being inappropriate. Lindsay's never inappropriate.
Okay, so they've got some issues. The whole money thing, but obviously it goes a lot deeper than that, and I think a lot further back. And so I think that the whole thing with the baby and the money and the rights, I think these are all problems that they're having right now, but it also brought up a lot of old issues that they've had for a while. They've got some stuff to work on.
Don't mind me, honey. I wouldn't know if I'm appropriate.
Can I get anyone another drinky?
Drinky? No thanks, and I don't think you should have one.
Hey, I'm not breastfeeding. Ain't my problem.
So Melanie's issues and insecurities, again with not feeling like she matters at all in their family and to Gus, and then she doesn't have any rights. Now, when Melanie is working so hard and so much, and she's given up her nest egg to finance this family that she doesn't really feel like she's a part of. All of that is obviously coming up for Melanie, and when she's drunk, her filter isn't quite there like it usually is. I love Debbie's face here as she sips her drink. So Brian has very much orchestrated this as a whole really big production and making everything perfect. Like, it is the perfect party for Michael. It's like his dream situation. It's the present is perfect. Captain Astro is there. Everything is just perfect. It's him and Brian. All these giant pictures of him and Brian. It's like his dream come true. Everything really, really great before it becomes really, really terrible. So then Emmett sees Captain Astro getting it on with a few guys, which is something that he sees differently now that he thinks that he's positive. How something like that can change your life forever. So he goes into the bathroom and it looks like a Madonna video in there or something. So many cameras. candles. It feels a little dangerous to have so many unattended candles in there. I don't know, it just feels like a real fire hazard. Is Brian also trying to burn down the place literally too? So then Emmett starts praying to God that he's negative.
If you do, I promise.
And then Melanie runs in and barfs in the toilet. So this whole setup here with all the candles, it was intentionally made to look like an altar, and we see Emmett praying there. Then we have Melanie who comes in and just throws up all over religion, like saying that it's ridiculous. It's kind of in that moment what they're going for, I think. But I love how this scene is set up. I love all the candles, and I love, you know, the vibe that they're going for and how it looks like an altar and all of that. All of the implications of that and what they're kind of saying about religion. I find it all really interesting. But also, it is a big fire hazard. So anyways, we see that Emmett was about to make a promise to God about something, or he did make a promise to God about something in exchange for him being negative, but we don't see at this moment what that promise is. When Emmett goes into the bathroom, this is what it says in the script. He clasps his hands together and bows his head, praying, "Please, God, let me be negative. If you do, I promise, I'll never have sex with a man again." Emmett opens his eyes, sober. Amen. So in the script it says what the promise is in that moment, but in the episode we don't find out until the end of the episode. I like that better. It makes it a much more startling moment or shocking moment at the end if we don't know about it beforehand. He lets Melanie in. She heads straight to what a second ago was his shrine, throws up. So David seems to really not be into the dancing every time we see him. Every time we see the two of them dancing, Michael's like really dancing up a storm and David's just kind of standing there. Kind of feels like Michael would give up after a while, and I also feel like David would give up his pouting after a while. Tracy buzzes down below. Vic buzzes her in.
Come on up and get your cock out.
Honestly, Tracy just kind of seems to find amusing because she's just smiling as she heads in. I love that. Ted's looking not so happy. He's drinking. Michael comes up to him and thanks him for the elephant underwear. So Ted asks him if him and David are going to get back together. Michael says no.
That's too bad. Say, listen, I know there's this part of us that thinks we don't deserve to be loved.
What are you talking about?
Let me finish. So, we fall in love with someone we know we can't have and who's never gonna love us. And we fantasize about the day when all of a sudden he realizes and sees everything he's been missing. You know, and all our dreams come true, only, you know, that day never comes, and before you know it, it's your 40th birthday, it's your 50th birthday, and you're still alone. Don't let that happen to you, Michael. Love someone for real. Someone who loves you.
And kisses him on the cheek and hugs him. Aw, Teddy. So obviously, Ted is absolutely right. It's what a lot of people do, and it's what he did too. So I feel like they're kind of explaining the whole Ted loves Michael thing here. Why Ted was in love with him or obsessed with him, whatever you want to call it. Ted knew that he could never have Michael. He became kind of in love with him and a little bit obsessed with him to just prove himself right that he thinks he doesn't deserve to be loved. Obviously also a part of what Michael's done with Brian. And Ted's just like, don't do what I've done. I'm 33 and I'm still alone. Don't let it happen to you like it happened to me. Although, I think Ted's still got lots of time. Ted tells him to love someone for real who actually loves him and who he can actually be with, because he does deserve love. I don't think that he's saying here, so love me. I think he's just saying, so love someone. Like David. Ted knows that Michael's never gonna love him like that. I mean, Michael basically told him as much at the end of 104, and so we know for sure that that's true, and Ted just wants him to be happy. And I think this is showing us here that Ted is more selfless than Brian, although Brian is gonna be doing something sort of selfless in his own way. Coming up right now, Tracy enters the loft.
They're all a little drunk. I only know 6 of them.
So Michael's just desperately trying to explain everything away.
Your friend Brian called. He asked me to come.
Look, are you hungry? Because there's this burger place right here. We could go get a bite.
Michael is basically just trying to get Tracy out of the party. So Brian introduces Tracy to David.
Tracy, yeah, we met.
Right, you're Mike's chiropractor.
He's also his boyfriend. Oh, excuse me, ex-boyfriend.
And then David gives Brian a "what the heck are you doing" face, which I love.
First time they fucked, Michael came like 3 times.
Brian is really going nuclear here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what there is to it. And Tracy runs out.
Don't go yet, Mike. You haven't even had your cake. Fuck off!
I love the way that Michael yells that. It's really great. Okay, also, so Brian obviously purposefully told Tracy to come to the party late, I guess so that he could have some more time with Michael. In the script here, for the description, after Brian says, "You haven't even had your cake," it says, "Michael looks at him with murder in his eyes." And I love that because I feel like that is what he's conveying there. Michael hands like his drink and his present bag to Justin, which is the second time that that's happened to Justin tonight. So I love that consistency. So Brian spits out some blood and then pops a balloon in his arms. I think Brian's just really mad at what he just had to do. Michael follows Tracy outside, and let me just say her outfit is great. I love it. I love it a lot.
Do you laugh at me? You and your friends? The boys, you laugh at me?
No. No.
That must be a big joke to you, huh? The girl at work? The one who has the crush? She's so funny because she's so stupid.
It's not like that. I swear.
You're a liar, Mike. A liar.
Then Tracy leaves. God, I feel so bad for Tracy here. I mean, I always feel bad for Tracy, but especially here. And it makes total sense why she would think that. I also appreciate here how she's not mad that he's gay. She's just mad that he let her on, and he let her on for so long. She feels really stupid and used and foolish. I feel so bad for her. Oh, Tracy. So then we see that Brian is doing some drugs, and Michael comes back in.
I'd like to get out of here. How about you?
Yeah. Don't forget this.
And Justin says this in a very movie-esque flashing neon sign of symbolism kind of way.
I don't want it.
Thanks for the party.
So Michael's finally done with Brian. He's finally done it after all these years. Even Michael can't excuse this.
Well, Brian, you really know how to throw a birthday bash.
Too bad all good things must come to an end.
Is anyone surprised? It's the way he treats people. Am I right? I mean, is there anyone here tonight that hasn't been fucked by Brian Kinney, one way or another?
What do you know? Now Michael has been too.
So you finally gave him what he wanted. Good for you.
So then basically everyone lines up to take a dig at Brian on their way out. I just love the idea of them all just standing there in line waiting for their turn. Like they just go one by one in a line of like, how dare you, you make me sick. But then Lindsay says this.
How could you have done it to him, Brian? Your best friend in the whole world.
Everyone else was kind of getting in a dig at Brian, but Lindsay just said, how could you do it, Brian? Not saying that he's the worst and whatever and all that. She just said, how could you do it? So again, I think we're just kind of seeing deeper relationship that those two have. Then Justin goes up to him.
Aren't you gonna make your big exit too?
No. You're gonna need someone to help you clean up this mess.
And I love that moment. So I don't think that Justin does this in a, ooh, another chance for me to get closer to Brian kind of thing. Another opportunity for me to worm my way into his life, to be with him, to spend time with him. I think he does this in a really genuine, he can see that Brian is hurting and that all of his friends have just abandoned him. They're all mad at him, and for good reason, obviously. And he just wants to help him and help him deal with the mess that he made, put all the pieces back together. I think he probably knows that Brian had a reason for it. You know, Brian always has a reason for everything that he does. And we've seen before that Justin is kind of like the Brian Kinney whisperer. Like when he was mad and threw Justin out before, and then Justin didn't really seem mad because he kind of understood. Anyway, so he wants to help Brian, not in a selfish way at all, in a very selfless way. And I just love that. I love that little moment we get there between the two of them. There's not a ton of Justin in this episode, but the little bits that we do get, I just love. Okay, so when Brian first does this, you know, like invites Tracy over, when I first watched this, I remember thinking, oh my God, that is unforgivable. That is just so awful and terrible. How could he do that? And then shortly thereafter, I realized, oh, okay. Debbie told Brian to let Michael go and to do something to get him back with David. And how can Michael move on as long as he thinks that Brian is an option? So he did this. Okay, I get it. It was just kind of funny because I was really mad at Brian for like 10 seconds and then that was it. But Brian definitely took the nuclear option on this. He definitely doesn't do things halfway. But honestly, I'm just not sure that Michael would have reacted the way that he wanted him to any less. Like if Brian had done less than what he did, I'm just not sure that Michael would have gotten the message, given up on him and Brian and gone back to David. Michael's at David's house.
Like when you punched him.
He deserved it.
I mean, he did deserve it.
I missed you.
Have you?
Yeah, I have.
I'm not sure what's happening here right now.
I want to take you up on your offer to live together. I want to give it a shot.
I'm not a consolation prize.
Because to be honest, that's what it feels like here. Because Michael's finally realized, okay, I can never be with Brian. After what he did, how could he do that? I'm done with him, I will never be with him, and I can never be with him. So I guess that means I'll move in with David then? Like, that's just kind of what it feels like to me in that moment. So I understand why David said that.
Your first prize.
You're sure?
I'm 30. It's time I settled down and took on some responsibility.
Wow. Now you're making me sound like life insurance.
He is. He definitely is. Like, this is the right thing to do and the responsible thing to do. It reminds me of Ted in 106.
Sex is never the right thing to do. Feeding the poor is the right thing to do. Hiring the handicapped is the right thing to do. Donating blood is
All right,
the right.
you made your point.
And Ted was wanting to be with someone who was appropriate, and then he had that whole thing with Roger. Kind of reminds me of that. Kind of a little bit. I mean, I do also think that Michael really loves David, too.
Well, in a way you are.
Oh, wow, that's definitely what you want to hear.
Do you still love me? Because I love you.
Honestly, from this scene, I'm thinking, oh, these two are doomed. They're going into a relationship or a partnership like that. That's not going to pan out. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So then in the script, after Michael says that he loves David, it says, David is surprised by Michael's confession. Michael is a bit surprised himself. I just find that interesting. David wasn't really sure if Michael really loved him. He knows that he himself loved Michael, but wasn't really sure about Michael's feelings towards him and how, real they were. Then I also like how Michael is surprised too. He's surprised that he said that, also surprised that he feels that, and yeah, it's interesting. So the next morning, we see that Justin slept over at Brian's. Justin's in Brian's bed, but he's still fully clothed, wearing what he was wearing last night. I mean, the party's probably only been over for like a couple hours or something. Anyway, so Justin really didn't use that opportunity to get with Brian. I mean, I don't think that he had to. They seem to be together a lot, but anyways, it just basically Justin really was just there to help. And I don't know, I just love this progress. I love how we've kind of stopped having Justin following Brian around all the time, trying to get with him, trying to impress him, and now they seem to be more like friends. Debbie is there. Michael asked her to get his presents.
Hey, Sunshine. You got some tables to bus. Christ, I was pissed at you last night. Everybody was. Is. But right in the middle of my cussing you out, I finally figured it out. You can't do anything quietly, can you? Everything's got to be a spectacle, a drama. You couldn't have pushed him softly. You had to shove him off a fucking cliff.
Yeah, I had to, otherwise he would just follow me around forever.
Yeah, I guess he would have. Justin!
I'm brushing my teeth.
You loaned him your toothbrush?
I love how outraged she is at that. I get it. Sharing toothbrushes is a big no-no. Big absolute no. So I'll just point out here that you can see in the background of this scene, in the bedroom on the dresser thing, is the drawing that Justin did of Brian that Brian bought at the art show in 106, and it's framed now, which means that Justin does know that Brian bought his drawing. And so I always wonder, when did he tell him? When did Justin find out? Did Justin just see it there one day? When? And I have so many questions about this, but I love that Justin knows that Brian bought it. You could think, oh, but that means that then someone didn't, really love Justin's work and some stranger bought it. But I think it would definitely mean a lot more to Justin that Brian bought it as opposed to a stranger. I mean, I don't think Brian would have bought it if he didn't like it or didn't think it was really good, for one. But also that it shows that Brian cares about Justin and all those things. So I'm sure that Justin was really happy about it. And I just love that he knows about that now. And I love that Brian put it up. I love that Brian actually put it up and displayed it and framed it.
It was the only way.
This David. He's good for him.
Yeah, that won't last.
Maybe not. But he should at least give it a try.
So, how's he doing?
Trying to figure out why his best friend would betray him. Of course, he doesn't realize that it's the best thing that could ever happen. That you did him a favor. That maybe now he can finally have a chance to have a life. You take care, kiddo.
Thank you. Okay, so Brian did this whole thing, this whole party thing, as one last big hurrah for him and Michael, like a really big way to say goodbye to Michael, like one last really good time. Also to push Michael away from him for good. He did it in a really huge way. It was very much, you know, commit or don't do it at all. But he's definitely right though. If Brian hadn't gone this big, Brian hadn't sabotaged Michael's life in such a monumental way, betrayed him and all of that, I don't think that Michael ever would have left. I mean, Michael would have kept hanging around Brian forever, always hoping that one day things would change. As Ted said, that Brian would realize what's been in front of him all along. And then Debbie acknowledges that Brian did have to go this big in order for Michael to give up on that. As for what Brian did, was it okay or was it right? No, it really wasn't. What Michael was doing to Tracy, I've been team he should stop leading her on for a long time now, because I mean, she thought that they were dating. Still not cool what Brian did. I get why he did it, and it was pretty much the only way to give Michael what Brian has been told that Michael needs from Debbie, but it's just really too bad that Tracy had to be brought into it. At least she knows the truth now, but we'll see how she deals with it in the next episode. I love the way that Brian says,
Yeah, that won't last.
he's so sure of this and he's always known it. I think he's right, and like I said earlier, even Brian knows that it's not going to last between them because it's not really what Michael wants or wants right now, but he just kind of thinks that that's what he should want and how he should be living his life. I think that Michael does love David, and we know that David loves him, but I don't know how compatible they are. So different. They're in really different places in their life. They value different things. Brian's always known this. I also like that he said that because he knows that it won't last, but he still did all of that anyway. And he did it because Debbie asked him to, because she told him that it's what's best for Michael, that it's what he needs. And I think that Brian really respects Debbie so much, and he's going to do whatever she wants. I like also that Debbie acknowledges that it might not last, but it is a start and he needs to start growing up. I don't know. I mean, I don't think that it's totally a bad thing for Michael to go into this relationship. I think that if he ultimately wants a relationship with someone, that he should probably do this. Will this one last? Maybe not. But then maybe the next one will. And then he won't have all of those, oh God, I've never been in a relationship. What is this? What do I do? Issues. So there's this part at the end of the scene in the script that didn't make it in. Debbie says, oh, your keys, handing them to him. He says he doesn't want them anymore. And I'm kind of glad that they took that out. I mean, it drives the point home just a little bit too hard. It also seemed a little bit too harsh. She's just said, you know, thanks for what you did and everything. And then she's like, yeah, he's done with you forever. Like, that's what she's saying, basically, when she gives him the keys and says that. So Emmett and Ted are in the waiting room to get his results. The Grusolog comes to greet them, and we learn that apparently Emmett's check bounced for insufficient funds.
You're paying me back.
Okay, who gives a shit? About $60. I'll leave it to you in my will.
Also, yeah, if they ask you to come in, it usually means because something's wrong. I guess they did that because they have to get him to pay, like just to make sure that he pays. What a really rough thing to do to someone, especially over the weekend. So his test results were fine. Emmett starts crying a little bit and then laughing and smiling. And then the nurse asks him out. Emmett says he can't, he's busy.
You can have him. I made a promise to God.
Promise to God? What promise to God?
I prayed and told God that if I were negative, I would never have sex with another man. And I'm negative. So I can never touch a man again.
Uh-huh.
So we learn that that is the promise that Emmett made to God. Will he keep it? We'll see. Then we're at the loft and Brian's on his floor smoking. He's got a bottle of Jim Beam in front of him. He's reading the Astro comic that he got from Michael, and the giant pictures of Michael are behind him. This is a really great shot that I love. Great ending to the episode. Brian is just surrounded by the destruction of the party and all those reminders of Michael, and also he's alone. So whenever we see Brian drinking Jim Beam, that means that things are not good. Is it what his father would drink, maybe? I don't know. And then the song Boys Keep Swinging by David Bowie is playing. So this is the song that played at the very beginning of the episode in that first scene with the four of them walking down the street. So this song is very on theme. They're all boys and they're not growing up, but then Brian kind of pushed Michael into adulthood while Brian is still a boy himself. So it just really contrasts also against the beginning of the episode when the song was playing, because the four of them were walking down the street and they were so happy and they were joking. And then now we have that song playing again, but Brian is all alone now and things aren't looking very great. So then in the script, the description for this last scene is the camera glides over the remnants of the party. Pictures of Brian and Michael, half-empty glasses, uneaten food, etc. Brian, smoking pot and sucking on a bottle of booze, carefully examines the rare and costly comic he bought for Michael as he turns the pages alone. Brian is there, he's alone, his best friend is gone. He started off the episode with Michael and Emmett and Ted walking down the street, really happy, not a care in the world, and then ends the episode completely and utterly alone, surrounded by all the destruction that he's created, and kind of torturing himself with this comic that he got from Michael, and these pictures of him and Michael, and he's just so completely alone. And the same song is playing from the beginning of the episode, so it really ties it all together. Okay, so a great episode. The title, Surprise. Obviously, Brian throws a surprise party for Michael. It's Michael's birthday, but then also Brian surprises Michael with Tracy and outing him to her at the party. And then Emmett gets the surprise that he might be HIV positive. Theme to the episode, I think growing up. None of them want to grow up and they all dread it. But Debbie and other people think that they, and especially Michael, should grow up. Michael is very childlike. He's kind of stuck in adolescence or boyhood. And Brian is keeping him there with the comics and everything. And honestly, he really treats Michael with kid gloves all the time. He's also keeping him away from relationships, keeping him going out every night, until Debbie tells Brian to get him to grow up, to get him to move on from Brian because he's going to drag him down, essentially. So he does. He makes Michael grow up, which basically forces him into an adult relationship, and then Brian's just left all alone in Neverland. Debbie appreciates that Brian does this, and Debbie seems to really care about Brian, and maybe that's why Debbie could be so harsh on him before, because she sees him like family. So the whole storyline with Emmett was really, really great. I'm really glad that he's getting more storylines and more screen time. That fear and that dread that he felt. Your whole life can change in an instant. Luckily it didn't. Luckily for Emmett it didn't. But we saw that Emmett made a promise to God never to have sex with another man, which may seem extreme, but the level of fear that Emmett felt and that he had, and you know that he probably grew up in the church too, you know, he's from the South, so that's very much in him as well. It's hard for some people to see because he's so confident in himself, especially out of everyone, but I think that that scare really shook him to his core. See how that pans out. So we really explored the whole Michael and Brian relationship in this episode, what their dynamic is exactly, what they mean to each other. So we've seen before that Michael would do anything for Brian, and now we see that Brian would also do anything for Michael. That whole thing in the last episode when they're talking, Brian says something about how Michael's always there for him, and Michael says, you are too, but then Brian says, yeah, but you more than me. And that seems to have been true, but in this episode, it's really Brian who is there for him more. Something that Brian kind of confronted in the last episode and then did in this one. He would do anything for Michael, including pushing him away and losing him and hurting him, even though that it's his best friend who he loves. He did it for him. So Justin was in this episode very little, but the parts that he was in, you know, they were fantastic as usual. I really like the developing dynamic between him and Brian. Saw the cracks in Melanie and Lindsay's relationship growing. It definitely got issues between the money and Melanie feeling left out and whatnot. Obviously something's going on there, and they really seem to be drifting. So we'll see what happens with that. Melanie and Justin hanging out was just delightful. I really loved it. We also got to see more of Melanie and Ted hanging out, which I love. Ooh, and the Grusalog and poor Tracy. Like I said before, I'm not going to compare this version of Queer as Folk to the UK one, but I do have to say that in the UK version, at Vincent's or Michael's 30th birthday party, which was very similar to this one, the Daphne and Cynthia counterparts, like those version of those characters in that show, they were there at the party too. They were guests who were invited to the party, which just makes me really sad because they're two of my favorite characters that I love so much, and they weren't here, and they could have been. I just would have loved to have seen that here. So overall, a really great episode. I mean, aren't they all? So this episode set up a lot for us with Brian and Michael, with Emmett, with Melanie and Lindsay's relationship, which that has been building, but we see that a little bit more here, you know, with Michael and David. So a lot is set up that's gonna continue on in the next few episodes. So we're officially halfway through season 1. Next is season 1, episode 12, Move It or Lose It. So all the usual things like subscribe, comment. Bye.